What is up, everybody? Sean Sheehan back here with another edition of the Sheehan Show on Sherdog.com. Today, it is a recap of the first trifecta of PFL events in the 2024 season. And to me, it's been a really good start to the season. I think the standout event was the second event, event of the year, caliber event, but we will get into that, a recap, just some of the results more than some of the fights here and some of the general feel, I think, around the PFL and the cards, all told. I think, do you know what I really like about the first three events in the PFL season is the discussion, first and foremost. We can talk about the fights and we can talk about all of that in a second, because I feel like the discussion has changed a little bit, because look, we've had a lot of talk from the PFL about being the co-leader. We've had the merger with Bellator, and we are now at a stage where it's time to go to that next level for the PFL. Now, it's easier said than done to do that, right? But the discussion is there, I think, to get there. Whether it'll happen, I think everyone in MMA hopes it does happen. It's good for me sitting here reviewing the fights, and good for the media. It's good for the for PFL. It's good for the fans. It's good for the fighters. And you know what? It's probably even good for the UFC, because the UFC have no problem signing fighters anyway. The younger fighters, the way they're doing it. If MMA becomes more popular, the UFC is obviously going to become more popular, and all good, right? So it's good for everyone. And the discussion I'm talking about is, like, I think Aaron Bronstetter brought up a tweet, and he said, he basically said, like, a lot of people talked about the PFL, and then there isn't that many people watching it here on the first night. Now, I believe it was a Thursday night, so maybe not, obviously that's not the best night, but I feel like for the second event and the third event that built, and I was actually away for the third event. I didn't see it live. I watched it back when I came back from my bit of a short holiday up the country. But I was following along. I was in Irish countryside here, so I had barely any internet. But I was following along on Twitter, and there seemed to be a lot of people tweeting out the results, a lot of people watching, a lot of people live tweeting it, more so, I think, than before. And that is a real win for PFL. That is a real win, because I feel like MMA, more so than any sport, although maybe we're a little bit biased, or maybe we're too close to it, but it feels like it's run by Twitter and Instagram and online, and you know. I'm coming off after talking to a few fighters there, and you interview guys, and they say things like that to you. Oh, this guy was talking about it online. The fans are talking about this fight. This is the fight I want because of that. This is the place I want to sign because of that. This is where I want the fight because of the online chat. And without that online chat, like, what are you? Like, PFL needs that, the UFC need that, Cage Warriors, One Championship, whoever, they all need it. And it's the hardest thing in MMA to get. It really is. And that's why I started off this chat today with that, because I feel like the PFL, whether it's people, you know, we all know the people out there that are like, giving out about whether, and you know, I can throw myself into this as well, whether it's the UFC or PFL or Bellator or One Championship, whoever it might be. But they're still talking about it. They're still watching it. They're still, you know, they're co-leader, ha ha ha. But they're talking about it being the co-leader, you know. And Don Davis throwing that out there is part of it because of that. Look, he's a businessman, and the business jargon and all, we all know about that. But it has become a talking point, and people talk about it and all. And I think from the business side of the chat, I'm not sure about the actual business of it myself. I'm no businessman. Whether all this investment and everything works, we'll find out, I suppose. I think everyone should hope it does. But that's a long play rather than a short play. I think in the short play, what they've said, what they've talked about in the business, even I know a friend of mine listened to Don Davis did an interview in TalkSport over here in the UK and Ireland, and he was very impressed by him. And he's not an MMA fan, but more of like a business guy. And he was very impressed by the way he spoke. So I think they've done a good job in that. I think the MMA side of it may be a little bit different. I think they need a figurehead. They need not necessarily a Dana White, or even not necessarily a Scott Coker, but I don't know. I think the perfect man would be a Brian Stan. You know, someone who knows MMA, who's passionate about it, who's well spoken, who can, you know, Don Davis does his bit, but he's not going to be able to tell you the intricacies of why Valentin Moldavsky and Ante Delia is a good fight. You know, and you don't have to be a fighter to do that. Like someone can be, I can do that to you, right? I can do that for him, no problem. If you want to employ me, let's go ahead. I'm only joking. But there's people out there who can do that job, right? I think Brian Sandy be perfect, but I'm sure there's other people out there that can do that sort of job as well. And maybe that's the one thing to get that chat even more going, to go to the next level, because what they have now is a really good stable of fighters. And as the stable of fighters has just doubled, if not more, over the last while. And it's not doubled. Do you know what's funny, right? It's doubled in quantity, but it's tripled in quality. Here, let's try that once more. Doubled in quantity, tripled in quality. At least, I would say. The Bellator Bellator had a great roster. Make no mistake about it. I've covered PFL have a good roster as well. Don't take, in the old PFL, but Bellator had an exceptional roster. Like, they had the best fighter in a couple of divisions. 2 to 3, 4 maybe divisions. Or at least there was an argument that they had, right? Whether they had or not, okay, we can discuss that further. But now PFL have that, and that is massive, right? And I feel like you need an MMA person to tell you that. We, as MMA fans, we know, right? But my casual friend, does he know? Right, the person who tunes in for the McGregor fight, the Jones fight, the Dano, right? They might tune in. They know Francis Ngannou now, maybe because of the boxing. Maybe they'll tune in for him. You need someone in that position then to tell him why the rest is good. And maybe that's the one thing PFL need to add. And this is a personal feeling, right? And something that could be added over time. And I feel like something that would or could take them to the next level. But what they've done so far has been pretty good. Like, I have my little bits of criticism of maybe as I just said, like some of the promotion or a little bit of the production or whatever, as I think most people do. But there isn't much, to be honest. I think they've done a good job, and sometimes you just have to do a good job and take the time and, pick off a few more fighters and get a few more names and build and build and build. This can't be a fast process. It can't be. And I think the first 3 events of this year, I suppose I've shown that a bit, but I've also shown what the PFL have, right? The level of fighters that they have. And we'll go through all the fighters at the end, and we'll go through the standings at the end. But I want to go into the events now, maybe without even further ado, because that's the most important thing. At the end of the day, the fighters, the fights, if you can build these events, get people ready for them beforehand. Here's another thing as well. You have a massive advantage over the UFC in that beforehand, right? For the last few years, you put a UFC event on, and it's very hard to get any event from another promotion to stand up to it. That's not the case anymore, right? The vast majority now of UFC events, 3 out of 4 a month, maybe that's someone, maybe, okay, the vast majority. Half at least of the UFC events now, PFL/Bellator can put on a better event than them. They absolutely can, right? So that's half of 52, 26. They do less than 52. So let's say 20. Let's go with 20, right? 20 events a year for the UFC are nothing events. Apex cards with maybe 1 good fight on it. PFL can put on that amount of events per year with better fights in it. They have a natural turnover of fighters as well, which the UFC obviously doesn't have because of the season/tournament style, and that really helps them as well to get the fighter. The fighters know straight away. I talked to Daniel James just before doing this, and he fought. When did he fight? Last week or the week before? And we broke up for a second. He got a phone call, and he already has his next fight. That very rarely happens in the UFC or other places. That's a natural advantage to turn over fighters, to get people to be fans of them and to move forward. So, and that's also how you build these cards. You build these cards into better cards than the UFC Apex cards. If they can do that 20 times a year, they're really onto a winner. And I truly believe they can. And if you target those dates, the dates, first of all, when there's no UFC, but the dates around bad UFC cards, you can, because like, I come on here, I'll do a betting show. If there's 15 UFC fights that I've no interest in, and 9 or 10 PFL fights that are Moldavsky or Karamouche or names you're going to concentrate on them. My show is going to be a betting show about them. Luke Thomas is going to do a show. Who's he going to talk about? He's going to talk about the good fights coming up, not some weirdo Apex event coming up. That's just going to happen, and that's how you do it. And I really think it's not that they haven't done that, but I think now we've only seen 3 events so far. They have an opportunity to do that going forward, and I really do think they have the fighters to do it, and I think it could be a real way for the PFL to become, that co-leader and go forward in a real positive way. So, right, let's get to it. I think one of the criticisms on the first PFL event from some people, although for me it wasn't a major criticism, some people were talking about the production. I think that has very rapidly improved, especially for the second one. As I said, I didn't see live the first one, so I got to the fights and the third one. I got to the fights and I've kind of forwarded through it, so I haven't as good a grasp on that one, but definitely for the second one, it had improved. I've loved Tyron Woodley on the commentary. I think he's been great. I still miss Kenny Florian. I'm a little bit biased because I'm a regular on the Anakin Florian podcast, but I do like Kenny. I think without a shadow of a doubt, Kenny is the most improved commentator in MMA in the last 10 years, without a shadow of a doubt. I think when he started in the UFC, he wasn't the best, and I think he lost that job and he went away and he improved. I'd love to see him, Sean O'Connell, and Tyron Woodley. Nothing against Randy, but I just think that'd be a very good trio. Obviously, Randy's a legend and he's there. He does a good job. He's not the best commentator in the world. He's not the worst commentator in the world. But I'd like to see that trio. But I think Tyron Woodley has been really good, and definitely a guy I'd like to see continue doing that. But yeah, for me, the production was, last year there was a lot of issues. I think there was a few issues this year. There was kind of a lower third kind of put on the main event on the first night, I think, for a few seconds, which obviously wasn't great, and a few audio issues. I really don't like when they bring commenters, let's say, at that, whether it's a fighter or whoever it might be in the middle of a fight. Like, no problem between fights or between rounds even, apart from Big John. Big John, it makes sense. But, I have a great time for Ian Parker, and I love seeing him on the event, but not during the fight. Like, give me Ian Parker between rounds. Give me Ian Parker before the decision is read, or give me him directly before the fight. No problem with that. Look, betting is a part of MMA now. We all know that. You're not getting rid of it. And you wouldn't want to, I suppose, either. But and whether, AJ McKee as well, and, Johnny Eblin at home and bad internet connections, let's move that aside. I know you want something to make different. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I think that's something they need to move away from, but they haven't done as much of it, and I give them credit for that as well, but completely move away from that, because you have a good product, right? So for the third time, let's get into the first event. The first show was the women's flyweight division, and it was the heavyweight division, and it was, I suppose, a good start for the women's flyweight division. Especially, you had Dakota Decheva picking up a win, you had Talia Santos picking up a win, and you had Liz Carmouche picking up a win, right? You also had Kana Watanabe. She got a win there. Jenna Bishop got a win, and I'll run down through the divisions at the end, or maybe I'll do it after every event. But I want to talk about the women's flyweight, because this is something, right? Okay, if the PFL had, and look, they do, I suppose, in RSF, but if they had like a MMA promoter who was gone out, talking smack all the time about promotion, here's something they wouldn't say, right? Here's something they wouldn't say. The PFL's past seasons for women's MMA have been a one-horse race. We all know that. It's been Kayla Harrison, and then Larissa Pacheco, right? Okay, and one of them didn't turn out to be that way, because Larissa Pacheco beat Kayla Harrison, but coming into it, that was a Kayla Harrison show. The year before was Kayla Harrison show. The year before was Kayla Harrison show. And when the Kayla Harrison wasn't in it, it was the Larissa Pacheco show. And no one was expected, and no one did, apart one fight, there was a shock in 4 years, right? That's no good. That's no good for anyone. That's the antithesis of what a tournament should be. But now, for the first time ever, right? So you can't, if you're a promoter, you can't say that. But what you can say is, for the first time ever, they have a real women's tournament on here, a real one, because Santos, Decheva, and Carmouche are two world-class fighters, and one who I already actually think is a world-class fighter. This is a proper tournament with 3 very, very, very good fighters on, who I don't know who will win any of those fights. Like, if I was to ask you who will win between Talia Santos and Liz Carmouche, top of my head, top of my head, I'd go Santos, right? Who will win between Santos and Decheva? I'm probably thinking about this. I think Santos is probably the favourite, let's be honest. But who will win between Decheva and Carmouche? Those are very, very interesting fights there. Really interesting. And it's the best tournament for women's MMA they have put on. It is a fantastic tournament. It's probably the best women's MMA tournament you could put on outside of the UFC. Now that Kayla Harrison obviously went, Chris Cyborg is still available, but there isn't enough. That's where the talent they've got. This signed Talia Santos, obviously, who is this top 3, top 4 in the division in the UFC. They signed Dakota Decheva, by far and away the number 1 prospect in the world, and they signed by far and away the number 1 women's flyweight in Bellator. Perfect, absolutely perfect. So they have a real tournament there, a real tournament. I just wonder how they matchmake them from now on. I really wonder how they matchmake them, because I'm looking forward to seeing that. Let's have a quick look at the standings as they are right now, because we know as well with the PFL standings, it's about finishes, it's about how quick you can do it, it's about what round you can do it. So Dakota Decheva, Talia Santos and Jenna Bishop all on 6 points, Liz Carmouche on 3, Kana Watanabe on 3, and then everyone else, apart from Shanna Young, who must have missed weight, is on 1. So Lisa Maudlin, Ilya Joanna, Chelsea Hackett, and Juliana Velasquez. Interesting for Juliana Velasquez, because she's another one, actually. I'd throw her in there as well, because, okay, she's lost her last 3 fights in a row, all against Liz Carmouche, but apart from the top 3, I think she beats everyone else. And, I think her versus Dakota Decheva, who's still very young in her career, could be a very interesting fight. I think Velasquez versus Santos is a very interesting fight as well. So let me throw Velasquez in there as well. Jenna Bishop deserves to be mentioned as well. She's on 6 points, could absolutely get through. So very interested in that division. Then we have the heavyweights, who, again, I love this heavyweight division because it throws up so many different people from Bellator and from PFL. So it's different matchups, and I'll speak about this a few times throughout this video. But there's one issue right here. I'll give you the good part first and the bad part. Right, the good part is Ante Delia and Valentin Moldavsky. They have how many fights between them? 50 fights each between them. And I don't think there's a common opponent. If there is, there's only 1 or 2, right? Which is very unusual at high level heavyweight MMA, right? And why is it unusual? Because people are fighting there isn't that many heavyweights, and people are fighting in the same promotion usually, right? Okay, you get a new sign into a promotion, it can change, but if Derek Lewis fights Rosenstruck, they're probably going to have 3 or 4 similar opponents, right? Without even looking at it. Or if whoever else fights whoever else. If Moldavsky was to fight Vassell, right, in Bellator, they'd have similar opponents. But now when there's the Bellator guys fighting the PFL guys, they have different past opponents, and it's harder to decipher who's going to win those fights, thus making it more exciting, making it harder to bet on, or sometimes easier to bet on. Sometimes you can make some money with this Moldavsky fight, especially. And I think that makes it more interesting. So this heavyweight division popped up a few of them, but not in the way maybe you'd expect. Sometimes like, okay, the Bellator division is way better, or the PFL division is way better, and it kind of shows it. But this was the opposite. Moldavsky won representing Bellator against Delia. Galsov representing PFL beat Linda Vassell, who was, the guy over about to challenge for the title in Bellator. You James and Golm, obviously, that was a rematch as well. And here brings me to the negative part maybe. There's a lot of rematches here. Like, why make that rematch? I know that was on short notice. He was supposed to fight Tyrell Fortune, but that was funny. That was also a rematch. Carmouche and Velasquez, they fought twice already. Why that rematch? Makes very little sense. And they're Coyote Yamauchi, Neiman Gracie, another rematch. No, doesn't make much sense. I would, if they took that, looking for a rematch makes sense, right? If they sign Shevchenko tomorrow and Santos is there, that's a rematch, that makes sense, right? Fine, no problem. But if someone beats someone pretty well, or you've loads of other heavyweights, you've new matchups, make the new matchups, right? There's no need to see these rematches. But anyway, that would be the one criticism I'd have of it. And elsewhere in the heavyweight division, as I said, Daniel James got a great finish late. Sergio Bilosten beat Belay Ivanov in. Is that the fight of the 3 nights so far? I'll have to go through it, but that was a great fight altogether. Popov beat Maori, and we had so that was all the heavyweights. Let's look at the heavyweight standings. Moldavsky's top on 6 points, 5 points for both Popov and James, 4 points for Goltsov, and 3 for Sergey Bilostein. On 0 then is Ivanov, Vassell, Maori, Golm, and Ante Delia. So I don't want to break news here, but I believe there is one person who's out of the tournament and another person back in that heavyweight division, and that will happen a few times. But yeah, I believe we might see Tyrell Fortune back in here in a fight coming up soon. So that is event 1, which went down pretty well. Event 2, an absolute classic of an event. I really, really enjoyed this. We had the light heavyweight division, and we had the lightweights as well. So, look, the old school classic division, I suppose, and the new best division. It was headlined by Impe Kasanganay against Alex Palizian. I interviewed Impe the other day, and such an interesting guy. I was questioning whether this should be the main event, but I think Impe is a star. I really do think he is a star, and anytime they put him in the heavyweight division, anytime they put him in the headlining position, I'll be happy with it. I'll never complain again. He got a great win here, got a great finish over Alex Polizzi early in the first round, and he's a guy, you look in that division and you think, right, there's some real talent in it. And look, do you know what there is? There's talent maybe a lot of people don't acknowledge or understand maybe how good they are, but there is a lot of really, really good talent in that division. And no more so than him. He went in there and he got Polizzi out of there pretty quickly. Rob Wilkinson did the same with Tom Breeze. And look, Rob, he's a guy. Look, we all know what happened last year. He had the drug test failure. He came back, and it's going to follow him again. We saw that, the screw up by Sean O'Connell, which wasn't great. Your job is there to put fighters over and all like that. And it wasn't supposed to be on the mic and it was caught off, off. Whatever you want, off kilter or whatever you want to say it, but not good for Rob Wilkin. You'd feel bad for Rob. I know, okay, maybe some people would say you failed the drug test, you shouldn't feel bad for him, but look, he served his time and that's that. And should people be talked about forever like that? Before I would have said yes, but in the last few years my opinion on that has very much changed. And look, he served his time and he should be allowed, get through it. But look, he put on a great performance here. Tom Breeze, I'm a big fan of Tom Breeze. I really like him as a fighter, and he's the beating of all of these guys. He really does. He has the ability to beat all of these. But it's just the mental side for Tom is very, very tough. This is a tough matchup. I hope he gets another go at it, and I'd love to see who he might fight next. Joshua Silveira as well got the win over Setabusi, coming up 2 weight classes, but that was, the injury. Shoefest got a lovely win over Simon Biong. Maybe Biong versus Breeze would be a fight to make. I wouldn't mind seeing that. Although Breeze versus Setabusi, both former welterweights, if I'm not mistaken, I think that makes a lot of sense as well. Smashing win for Yakhshimordov against Jacob Indai, who, I predicted would do very well this year. This was... let me just look at his record here. I believe he's only 9 fights into his career, if I'm not mistaken. 10 fights. 9 fights coming into it. A guy who, in another 10 fights, will be winning this sort of tournament. I guarantee you that. If it all goes, goes well and turns around. He has the quality, but he's just doesn't have that experience yet. But Yashimurdov has, and he put it to good use. So, very interesting there. The standings at the moment in that division, 5 lads on 6 points. So we all know, I told you it was one of the events of the year, and that encapsulates it. Wilkinson, Silveira, Yashimurdov, Kasanganay, and Antonio Carlos Jr. 5 lads all on 6 points. So that's going to be hot and heavy in the next round. Simon Biong, Polizzi, and C and Breeze obviously all on 0 there. And then we go to the lightweights, which is it's a great division. Maybe not as standout as it's usually the standout division. I feel like the featherweight division is a standout division this year, but nevertheless, the lightweight division is still very, very good here. And look, that fight between Patricky and Clay Collard, I talked about the heavyweight fight a second ago. That would, you put that right up there against it. It was a great, great fight. Clay Collard got through another great win for the PFL there. The Dufort Burnell fight, a bit of an odd fight there. Mads Burnell just being a madman kind of ended up losing that one. Brent Primus, I said it on my review of the second event, he is made for this. I don't know why, right? I don't know why, but I just feel like he's made for a tournament like this. And he beat Bruno Miranda. It was a very smart win. Rabizov again, another guy who's really good. Espinoza with a great win as well. And then with a showcase fight for Marcelo Nunes, who looked good also in that fight. The standings in the lightweight division, Dufort, Collard and Primus all have 5 points, so they're riding out on top. Espinoza on 4 next, then on 3 Rabzabov, and with no points we've Renfro, Piccolotti, Miranda, Patricky, Pitbull and Burnell. But when there's 3 people on 5 points, there's a big opportunity there. You go in, you get a first round finish, and you've immediately overtaken one of them if they lose, if they pull out through injury or whatever. You're right up there. So whether you're Renfro, Piccolotti, Miranda, Pitbull, Burnell, go out there and get a first round finish, and it's wide open for you. It really, really is. So that division, as I said, wide open. Then we had the third event, the welterweights and the featherweights, 2 smashing divisions here. Again, I'll tell you, I'm really, really impressed with the level of fighters that the PFL have. Like, to put on a fight like Umalatov versus Koreshkov, what a great fight. Like, what a really, really, really top level fight. Now, it didn't turn out to be a classic or anything. That it was a good back and forth fight, which Umalatov went in there and won. He kind of got the better of the rest, and he actually landed some good strikes as well. And took out Koreshkov. He's one of these guys who's going to be very hard to beat. But look, the boogeyman in that division is just Murad Ramazanov. He is an absolute beast. I watched him over One Championship, and I was like, this guy is one of the best fighters in the world. Now he's coming over here and he's fighting some of the best welterweights in the world. And I'll tell you what, we talked earlier about some of the matchmaking and how you could maybe get these people to invite each other to meet in the semifinals or the final. There's no doing that in these divisions because there's such good fighters there. Like, if you put Ramazanov in there with Umalatov, in there with Musayev, in there with Yamauchi, Don Madge, a good fighter. There are some serious fights there. And all those lads picked up wins. We have Madge and Ramazanov, the 2 at the top with 6 points. Musayev, who destroyed Logan Storley, beat him from pillar to post on 5 points. Umalatov on 3 with Yamauchi as well on 3. We've Gracie Koreshkov, the aforementioned Storley, Brendan Ward and Strapoli all on 0 points. But again, 2 lads on 3 points. You have let's say they put Koreshkov in there against Yamauchi. That's a massive fight for both of them. Koreshkov wins in the first, second round. He's overtaken him. So big fights there. But that division, like, Madge, Ramazanov, Musayev, Umalatov, Yamauchi, Koreshkov, Storley. That is top quality, real high quality stuff. And that's a division not to be trifled with. Either is the 145-pound division, which was showcased on last weekend. I suppose a bit of a damn squib in the co-main event, unfortunately for both guys. Look, it was a bad stoppage. I think Kevin McDonald would say that as well. Blocknan came out, he looked great, put Pedro Carvalho down. Pedro came back really well in terms of surviving. He was moving his head, and then the referee inexplicably really stopped it. I think Kevin McDonald, one of the most improved referees in the world over the last few years, but this was a bad stoppage. He must have seen something wrong. I can understand as well, Pedro kind of was moving in that direction. It's tough on both of them. It's funny, like, you usually say a bad stoppage is tough on the person who lost. It's probably tougher on Loughnane here because Loughnane looks so good. Like, he looked like he was going to win, but I'll caution people here as well. It's like, some people say, he was knocked down, he only saved him from more damage. How many fights have we seen through the years where someone gets knocked down, they're hurt badly, and they come back to win? Whether it's your opinion, I know Pedro was a big underdog and all, and I'd be saying this if it was the other way around as well. Make no mistake about it. you can't live life like that. You can't talk about MMA like that. If MMA was certain, sure Jesus, you would have put your mortgage on Brendan Loughnane before the fight, you know? So I don't think that's fair at all. I think this was, sad on both of them. Sad for both of them, but look, Loughnane gets through. I wonder if they do the rematch. I wonder do that. I think it probably makes sense, to be honest, but Loughnane has had a weird couple of years, hasn't he? Like, he had the majority decision over Ryoji Kudo in a fight he really could have lost. He's brought a lot of injuries in there. Jesus, he's such a great fighter. I love watching Brendan Loughnane fight. One of my favorite fighters in the world to watch fight, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Pedro does next as well, and seeing how they match them. Gabriel Braga, what a punch last second in the first round again. After all that's happened to him over the last year with his father passing away and everything, wonderful for him. Kai Kamaka again. I told everyone coming in, Kai Kamaka is an improved fighter, really improved. He beat Bubba Jenkins, beat him. I wouldn't say beat him well, but it was a comprehensive enough decision there. Barrocks and Barzola, what a fight that was. Rock'em Sock'em Robots could have gone either way. Great win for Barrocks. Kisriev and Johns, again, maybe not Rock'em Sock'em Robots, but a fight that could have gone either way. It was always going to be like that. That fight was 100%. And elsewhere in the featherweight division, Tyler Diamond got a good win over Otto Rodriguez. A win also I don't think people recognize how good that is, because Rodriguez is a brute and a very, very good fighter. So 6 points for both Loughnane and Braga, 3 for Kisriev, Barrocks, and Kamaka, and then Jenkins, Barzola, Johns, Gonzalez, Carvalho, all on no points. But look, all have the opportunity, I suppose, to pop back in and get into those playoffs with a big win last time out. So all told, there's no one out of it. There's wide open divisions. Really, really, really is wide open divisions there right now. Look, you'd have to say, if you're to go through, I'll go through each division here that we have them on the website. The standouts for each division for me so far. It's probably easy to say Gabriel Braga with the 6 points, but I'm going to go Kai Kamaka. I think he was fantastic against Bubba Jenkins at heavyweight. The standout for me, I'm going to go Moldavsky. I thought he looked great getting that finish there. At light heavyweight, you have to say Impa was a standout. Look phenomenal again. No doubt about that. At lightweight, I didn't know a whole lot about Michael Duford. I thought he was very, very good. But Clay Collard, that win was fantastic. I'd probably go with Clay there. At 170, I think the standout Ramazanov. But look, that division is stacked. Umalatov, Musayev. I have a soft spot for Ramazanov. I just rate him so highly. So he, to me, there. And look, the women's division, it'd have to be the Cheva, but Santos, Carmouche, really, really good as well. So what a start for the PFL. 3 events through. It's like, I love watching the PFL. I love watching MMA outside of the UFC and seeing a different format, seeing different fighters fight each other. And I bring back the elbows. That's the only thing I want. Bring in elbows. And we're perfect. That's all PFL. Just give us the elbows and we'll be perfect in. But all in all, a very good start to the PFL season. 3 events through. 3 very, very good events. And I'm looking forward to the next 3. All right, I leave it there. My name is Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.